Welcome back to the Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, I'm recapping episode 2 of season 2 of P-Valley. I know I'm a little bit late. My dermatologist thought it was a good idea to do extractions, and I didn't want to put makeup on right after that. I hope you guys can feel me on that. So life happened, but I'm here, and I will be recapping episode 3 tomorrow, so check back for that video. Again, we're playing catch up. Before I get into my review of the episode, I just want to encourage you guys to check out Katori Hall, who is the creator and writer of P-Valley. Her Twitter offers so much really good insight into some of the behind the scenes and breaking down the fourth wall of how she created the show, which I think is really helpful to conceptualize things that you may or may not have missed. So some of the things from her Twitter feed from episode 2 that she highlighted were the themes for season 2 are fantasy and fable, exploitation, and liberation, which we see a lot in the scene that she really specified was Keyshawn telling her daughter like her version of the Rapunzel story, like involving, you know, like bundles and hair and pretty privilege and texturism, I think was also in there as well. And then we also had to look a lot at loss and grief because the P-Valley universe is happening parallel with our real world. So COVID is absolutely a thing. And a lot of people endured a lot of loss due to COVID, whether it was the loss of loved ones, the loss of freedom, the loss of, you know, life before the pandemic. There was a lot of grief, and we're exploring that a lot this season thus far. Also the Delta Noir aesthetic, which is when you look at the scene between Andre and Autumn Haley from the first episode, that was a very huge nod to the noir style of film. And she's doing it with a little bit of a twist, adding more colors because, I'm sorry, Black people just pop really well on screen when we are in colors that look so good on us, like the whole monochromatic scene from the mayor's funeral, for example. And the other thing that she highlighted is the extent to which domestic violence really increased during the pandemic because people were forced to be at home with their abusers so much more than before the pandemic. We didn't have the distractions or the escapes that we typically did for the 5 minutes that the pandemic was taken seriously and lockdown was a thing. So it was really important to highlight what life was like for Keyshawn when she was at home with her abuser, which is why we're getting so much of that story. So let's jump in. So we're auditioning new girls for the club, for the grand reopening. We want like some new blood. The audition was really fun to watch. I love a montage like that. So we ended up with three new girls. 2 Roulette and Whisper are going to be new dancers, super talented pole work. And then we have Big Bone, who is not that strong of a dancer or a pole girl, you know, a pole sports person. I think that pole work is so magical. I put people who can work a pole are as magical to me as gymnasts, ballerinas, figure skaters. That takes a level of just like upper body strength and full body strength that I don't think I will ever know. Anyway, Big Bone just ain't that girl, but she is pretty. And I love that we're looking at the way pretty privilege and the politics of beauty plays into the sex industry in this regard. And so, of course, Autumn Haley is like, no, she's not a great dancer. Neither was I. But, you know, I can use that pretty face behind the bar. This will come back to bite her in the ass. So foreshadowing. Corbin and Andre. Oh, before we get there, Mercedes is once again being kicked down a notch. Mercedes has the experience. Mercedes is that girl, but because Mercedes is relatively older, we're also looking at how ageism plays into the sex industry as well. And the girls just aren't giving her the reverence or the deference that we would want her to have. And yes, Mercedes comes on a bit strong, but I don't like the ageism that's happening. And so she's kind of being relegated to the role of coach as opposed to HBIC. So Corbin and Andre come by the club. They're once again trying to get Uncle Clifford and Autumn Haley to sell. They offer them $500,000. There's this conversation about worth versus, I forgot the term used, worth versus whatever. they feel like even if the Promised Land people come back and want to offer money for the club, it should be more than 500,000. Now, Autumn Haley said 10 mil, and I was like, babe, let's not push it. And I think that Corbin and Andre are assholes. There is definitely some sex shaming going on here. And it's like, Corbin, we ain't forgot about what's going on with you. Okay, so keep it cute. There is this whole thing of like, well, this is going to be put up to a vote and this and this and this. And they do make a really good point that once those people come in and want to like knock everything down, you will probably be begging us to sell this club because everything around you is failing. But Uncle Clifford has the most faith in her business, and that's fair. And it's also a family for Uncle Clifford. Like, this is her chosen family and a place of safety for her girls. And I can understand her wanting to hold on to it. I think for Autumn Haley, it's more of a money grab, and she's trying to think more strategically. For Uncle Clifford, yeah, the money is important, but this is a safe haven for some of these girls. So Autumn sets the reopening for a premature reopening, honestly, because the club isn't ready. And Uncle Clifford is like, we still have repairs. We don't have a DJ. We have all these things. And Autumn Haley really wants to kind of cut corners, where Uncle Clifford is like, no, girl. So once again, this power struggle over who owns the club versus who doesn't is really at play here. And this is also Uncle Clifford's 40th birthday. So again, Autumn Haley is like overstepping her boundaries, but I don't think that they have effectively established boundaries between each other either. So failure on both parts there. So Lil Murda stops by to see Uncle Clifford. Uncle Clifford really ain't trying to see Lil Murda, especially because she's having a midlife crisis. Doesn't really want to do anything for her birthday. Feels like she's losing control of the club. She ain't had no love and affection in a while, and has decided that she's not going to be a part of this grand reopening because it's just too soon. So she takes a step back. She's home. She's venting, and Lil Murda drops by. Now, Uncle Clifford is hiding behind the door, but Lil Murda can see her in the mirror, and he's expressing his remorse over how he handled things, which I think is important, especially because Uncle Clifford hasn't been responding to the text messages. But I'm cautious of grand gestures of this nature because sometimes they're a boundary violation. And one of my viewers commented about like not liking Lil Murda and feeling that Lil Murda really kind of oversteps quite a bit. Again, it's a fine line between a person proving themselves and a person violating your boundaries. Let me know what you guys thought about or think about Lil Murda dropping by to express his remorse about how he handled his relationship with Uncle Clifford before he goes on tour. Let me know what you guys think about that. Is that a boundary violation, or is that the least he can do? I want to talk about that in the comments. Now we have to get to Derek and Keyshawn. I want to say that in my life and in my family, I've had family members, family friends who've dealt with domestic violence. And I think that it's really tempting to judge the victim, because for someone who's not in that situation, it's really easy to say, why don't you just leave? Or why don't you do? Everyone thinks they know what they would do unless they're in that situation or it's their family member. And, you know, what people are willing to do for immediate safety and not having the resources to just up and leave. There's a lot that goes at play. So watching this play out is, number one, really hard because I have someone in my family who was actually killed as a result of domestic violence. And I want to be able to ask questions about Keyshawn's choices without seeming like I'm judging. So bear with me. But it's also really hard to see her in this situation with Derek. And the fact that he's a white man makes it a little bit more difficult. So, Derek is talking with the sheriff about wanting to press charges on Diamond for the fight at murder night. The sheriff is like, if I press charges on him, I'm going to have to also press charges on you. So you might just want to let this go. And then we learned that Diamond has a record from the Army. And someone on Twitter did bring up him mentioning in the first season something about having like a weight on his shoulders following his time serving in the Army. So I'm hoping we get some background on Diamond's life. The sheriff also asked Autumn Haley's real name. I forgot that Montavious had come in the first season, had come looking for her, and there was something there. So I'm hoping, or I'm guessing that might be some foreshadowing there. So Keyshawn gets caught in her scheme where she was like, hiding the Pampers so that she could go to the dollar store to confront Diamond. And she ends up throwing Diamond under the bus because Derek gets enraged and he's like, you did this on purpose so you could go see him, whatever, whatever. And I guess to deflect his rage away from herself and onto Diamond, she says, he yelled at me, blah, blah. She makes herself a victim of Diamond's. So Derek then calls to get Diamond fired from the Dollar Tree. That really upset me a lot. And we know as the viewers that Keyshawn is aware that Derek didn't get this management job. So going on tour with Lil Murda is looking more and more attractive. Derek does not want her to leave the house, feels like, oh, it's too dangerous out there between COVID and gun violence. And it's like, sweetie, it's dangerous in y'all's house. So, sorry, I'm looking at my notes, guys. So Rome, the manager, comes by to try to sell Derek on the idea of Keyshawn going on tour. And Keyshawn is really finessing this situation. She knows that Rome isn't going to really do a good job of selling him on this, but she, on the back end, after Rome leaves, is like, I got it from here. I do kind of admire her ability to try to manipulate this situation. It's not enough because you really need to get the hell away from this man. And she finesses it enough to where he gives her permission to go on this tour. But I don't know about leaving your children with an out-of-work abuser. That part I have a really hard time with. So Uncle Clifford gets kidnapped by her friends. They throw her this very fabulous birthday party, which I wish I would have been a member of or a guest to. And, she gets a little, love and affection from the bartender. Very happy for her. She deserves. But she's still looking up for Lil Murda everywhere. And we've all been there, right? Where the person you really want isn't there and you're having a good time, but you're like, oh, I wish this person was here. So we're at the club, right? And Autumn Haley predictably cannot handle managing the club by herself. One of the dancers is having an issue with her baby daddy where he doesn't want to take a paternity test. I didn't quite get that. Whisper is obviously some sort of spiritualist, and maybe that explains those aggressively light blue contact lenses. Those freaked me out. There's a fire because Big L is trying to DJ and cook and do security. It's a lot going on. And then predictably, Big Bone is throwing ass on the bar, which as a bottle girl at the strip club, you don't dance, you serve drinks. That's a conflict of interest. And Autumn Haley is not doing a great job. Then Whisper and Brulette cut Mercedes out of their featured dance. So Mercedes feels compelled to really prove herself. She's been having this issue with her shoulder. My worst fear is finally confirmed when she falls. And she comes to at Diamond's house. Uncle Clifford rushes over because, again, parallel to our real world, the hospitals are at capacity due to COVID. So Diamond is the only person who they know to take her to. And we learned that Diamond is a root worker, and he kind of calls out or pulls out these 7 pounds of pressure. 7 pounds of pressure is what it takes to pull the trigger of a gun. So she's really being physically and mentally haunted by Montavious' murder. And he has Montavious' ring that he's done some root work on to make sure that no one finds the body and that he's not haunted. Autumn Haley is like, well, this is evidence. Once again, she thinks of things very, very super analytical and logical, not taking into account the power of spirituality and especially Black people's connection to our spirituality. When I was watching Lovecraft Country, I listened to the accompanying podcast that talked about the ways in which Anglo-Saxon Christianity really removed a lot of Black people from participating in these kinds of spiritual practices that have been deemed demonic by the mainstream world. And when I see things like this, it's a reminder of how we've been socialized to run away from that kind of stuff or not take it seriously. I hope that Autumn Haley didn't actually take that ring because we didn't see what happened off screen. But what we did see is that Mercedes is being haunted by Montavious. He says to her in her dreams that I took her and her kid in and she left me for dead like a thief in the night. And I forgot that last season, Autumn Haley was intending to abandon Mercedes as well. She was going to take the money and go. And Mercedes is like, you know what? You came, but you came so late. I want you out of my house because I can't continue to be haunted by this man. And Autumn Haley is also trying to encourage Diamond to come back without having much empathy for what Diamond went through on murder night. And the fact that he might not want to come back to the club to work security, given what he went through with Keyshawn, that was extremely traumatic for him. And of course, Uncle Clifford is like, we understand, do what's best for you. So Autumn stays in the very obviously haunted club where Montavious has been was killed, and we saw that little blip of him on the screen in the boom boom room. And Andre shows up, and they have this moment, and I just don't trust Autumn Haley. Yes, she was a victim, but she's also someone who takes off and runs, and I just don't see it for her. I really don't like Autumn Haley. I don't trust what she's going to do with the club. I think that she's leading so much with a logical mind that she's not considering the humanity of the people that she's working with or for. And it's important to take counsel from the people who know more than you. You have to combine forces and not think that you just know so much more. So I'm excited to see what else is to come for this season. Again, I'm going to do my recap for episode 3 tomorrow, so check back for that. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Again, I'm also grieving the loss of a family member, so this is kind of hard for me to do on a consistent basis. So just please bear with me. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all of the things. Join my Patreon. Let me know if you guys would be interested in me creating exclusive content for my Patreon, and I'll check back in with you guys later. Bye.